Welcome, Mark. So Kenneth Branagh is known for directing and starring in adaptations. What can you tell me about his version of Murder on the Orient Express?
Well, I think very much in line with what Branagh's done with previous films, such as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, he's taken a classic text and really thought about how that can work for a modern audience. So what we get with the new Murder on the Orient Express is a very modern take on the story, even though it's still set in period. So we have a slightly more action-oriented Poirot, for example. So the type of changes that perhaps a general audience like to see on their cinema screens.
Well, fans loved director Sidney Lumet's adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express. How would you compare the two films?
They are very different films. Both of them take the basics of the story and really run with them in slightly different directions. The 1974 Sidney Lumet version is very methodical, so it's very much about the mystery going through that step by step, going through all of our witnesses. But the more modern film, the new Kenneth Branagh film, is much more about, I think, the atmosphere. It's much more about the characters as well. So very different takes while still exploring the same story.
The original received many awards. Do you think that this version is going to be able to achieve the same success?
I don't think many films would like to be compared to the original Orient Express and ask, are you going to do the same? Probably not. I think times have changed a little bit too much for that. But I hope that what it will achieve is that lots of people will then revisit Agatha Christie and realise how good she was as an author, and hopefully get some more sort of entertainment value out of working through her large sort of back catalogue of novels and stories.
Well, you said one of the differences was the characters. They focus more about the characters on the new version. What are some other specific differences between the two?
Well, the original, the 1974 famous film, is very quiet. It's very much focusing on individual circumstances and all the clues for the mysteries. This new version is much more about building an atmosphere with these particular characters and getting an overall sense of how the mystery is developing. So I would say that the mystery and the clues were rather more important to the making of the original film, but this more modern one is much more about the atmosphere, much more about the characters, things like an action sequence, which we did not get in the original production.
Okay, so this version's been criticized for not bringing anything new to previous adaptations. Do you think changing the storyline is better or vice versa?
I think when you've got source material as good as Agatha Christie, you don't really want to make any changes. There actually aren't that many changes in this film. I wonder if the critics have gone back and consulted their old versions. But I think that sometimes you need to make changes for the screen to make things work. Stuff like structure is very important, that you need to ensure that there isn't a sort of lull in the middle of the movie, which can be the case if you take something from the book and don't make any changes. But the overall story, the solution, most of the characters are actually intact in this version, and I think that was absolutely the right thing to do when you've got a book as good as Murder on the Orient Express to work with.
What about you? What was your favorite scene in the new version?
I think the biggest revelation for me was how well I thought Branagh tackled Poirot. Although I wouldn't say that he's precisely the Poirot that we read in the books, he was a revelation to me in terms of the fact that he's a character on screen that you really want to spend some time with, which is good because he's in pretty much every scene, and he's someone who actually there's a lot of entertainment value from the way that he plays the character as well. So having seen his elaborate moustaches and been a bit wary of how he was going to tackle the character, I think he did really well. So that's the thing about the film that I was most impressed by.
Well, Mark, thanks for that great analysis there. It was a pleasure having you on our show today.
Thank you.